Well, should we maybe go around and introduce? Rick and I talked in the our main speaker today, Rachel Michelin with the California Retailers Association, is a friend of mine that I invited to join us today. So I'm going to do the introduction of her and kind of get us going. So maybe while she's going to be with us here in just a couple of minutes, maybe we should go around the room and do our introductions so that when she gets here, we can jump right in. If that sounds all right to everyone. And I'll just go by my screen, and I'm going to start with Joe.
You're on mute, Joe. Yeah.
Joe, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Joe Muller, resident member of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Perkins with Heritage Bank.
Thank you, Marby.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Marby Lee with Realtor with Remax Realty Partners.
And Armando.
Good morning, Armando Garcia, member, Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce Board.
Steve McFarland.
Hi, good morning. Steve McFarland, Morgan Hill Chamber.
Alex.
Hi, good morning. Alex Kennett, local realtor and Open Space Authority board member.
Thank you. John McKay.
Well, good morning, everyone. John McKay, resident, board member of Visit Morgan Hill and Morgan Hill Downtown Association.
Thank you. Krista.
Good morning. Krista Rupp, Executive Director of Visit Morgan Hill.
Thank you. Brian.
Good morning, all. Brian Sullivan, citizen Morgan Hill and president of the Community Law Enforcement Foundation.
Thanks. Rick. Rick, we can't hear you. Rick Kent is a member of the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce and co-chairs the Economic Government.
I'm sorry, I thought it was unmuted. I'm Rick Kent, member of the Chamber of Commerce and co-chair of the Economic Development Committee.
Great. Mario?
Mario Banuelos, member of the Chamber.
Thanks. Honorable Steve Tate.
Yeah, I'm Steve Tate. I'm a retired politician.
Brittany.
Morning, everyone. Brittany Sherman, Economic Development Coordinator, City of Morgan Hill.
Thanks. Jeff Burke. Jeff, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with. I thought I introduced myself, but good morning. I'm Jeff Perkins with Heritage Bank.
I have a Jeffrey Burke as well that I don't have on camera, but I have a name on the screen. Going once. Okay. We can come back. Julie's iPhone. Who is Julie's iPhone? Introduce yourself. All right, we'll move on to Katie.
Morning, everyone. Katie Scum with Heritage Bank of Commerce and board member with the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Katie. Victoria.
Morning, I'm Victoria San Nicholas, Director of Sales to the La Quinta Morgan Hill.
Thank you. We have Master PC's iPad.
Good morning. I'm sorry for no address there. I'm Devonna Meyer with eXp Realty, your local realtor. Thank you.
Hi, Devon. Thanks for joining us. And I have a phone number, 408-607-7220.
And Larry, that's me, Rick Kent. My audio's not working for some reason via my laptop.
Got it. Okay. So everyone write down that's Rick's phone number. Okay. So we're, Lori, Rachel's not in the waiting room or anything, right?
No.
Okay. Then I'm going to jump into some of our regular announcements that we typically have. I've got a couple of folks on here and I'm going to just jump right through. Alex, you want to talk about things going on with the Open Space Authority?
Yeah, the things I can talk about, we have our new, we have a couple of things going, actually. As you know, there's been a purchase by the Post of a 3,000 acre ranch that is in the adjacent to our Cañada del Oro preserve, and it looks like we're going to end up with that, which will extend our preserve from 4,000 to almost 7,000 acres. It's going to take us a while to open it up for hiking, but it will be there. Give it a few years. The other thing is our hard opening for our new Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve is now scheduled for October. Everything's been delayed because of the weather and everything, but it's you're welcome to drive by there and see the staging area. It's pretty pretty interesting. And other than that, we have a lot going on. There's people approaching us. It's interesting how many people are approaching us to buy their mostly ag land. So something's happening. So we're always open to preserve ag land. So if we can afford it. When I first joined the organization, we were an acquisition organization. Now we're a maintenance organization. From when I joined, we had just under 7,000 acres. Now we're pushing over 30,000. So other than that, I'll keep you apprised.
Right on. Thanks, Alex. I see Rachel has joined us. Good morning, Rachel. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm late.
Hi, no problem. So I'll do a brief introduction of Rachel here. Rachel, just to let you know who you're talking to, this is the Economic Development and Government Relations Committee of the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce, a cross-section of local business owners, large and small from across Morgan Hill. You also have 4 former locally elected officials on this call. Our economic development director from the city of Morgan Hill, the director of Visit Morgan Hill, and other folks. So we're really happy to have you join us. For everyone else, Rachel Michelin is the president of the California Retailers Association. CRA is the leading voice on retail in California, and I would say across the country on issues facing retailers. Rachel's been at the forefront on every issue facing retailers, but I want to just point out notably a few. She has been leading the discussion across the state of California about retail crime and how much retail crime has been affecting both business owners and local communities. And probably an evening news night does not go by without us hearing about retail crime and another closure. And when things like the flagship store of Nordstrom in downtown San Francisco closes, and they say the main reason is because of retail theft, we ought to start paying attention to the things that Rachel Michelin has been telling us over the past couple of years on the issue. I know Rachel because I was lucky enough to serve on her board of directors for many years, working on retail issues across the state of California. And I'm just really excited to have Rachel come join the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce and talk to us about sort of the state of retail and be able to answer questions we might have for her. So Rachel, it's all yours. Take it away.
Great. Well, thanks, Larry. Always great to see Larry. And when he calls, I'm like, absolutely, I'm going to jump on and join. So thanks for having me this morning. Yeah, lots going on in the space of retail, and I'll touch on, usually everyone wants to talk about retail theft and what we're doing on that front. So I'll touch on that in a little bit, but there's a couple of other issues that I think are important that we're looking at. And one big one that we are really focused on, not just the California Retailers Association, but the business community in general, is PAGA reform. Many of you may or may not be familiar with PAGA, the Private Attorney General's Act. I know it's probably one of the things I hear the most from my members, and typically it's an email of, I hate PAGA. So we are really trying to change it. We have an initiative that is qualified for the 2024 ballot. So we are going to be talking about it for the next probably 18 months. And it repeals and replaces PAGA with a system that is much more beneficial, particularly to the wronged employee, but also to the consumers and to the businesses, and taking away the ability for these class action lawsuits that result in multi-million-dollar settlements. That it's not just big businesses that pay that. We're seeing more and more smaller businesses who are being hit with these shakedown letters around PAGA reform. So if you're interested, I'm happy to send you more information about our efforts around reforming PAGA. I would say it's been a challenge right now. We have over 30% of the legislature is new. So we've been spending a lot of our time having to educate legislators on issues that are very important, not just to retail, but to the business community. We continue to work on goods movement. I'm now on the advisory committee to the select committee on goods movement in the state legislature. The goods movement, we still have a supply chain issue in California, and that impacts all of us. It's not getting better. We have a labor dispute going on with the ports that we're trying to, we're not directly engaged in the negotiations, but we're certainly following it. And to Larry's point, the whole country's watching, because, typically about 40% of goods came through the ports, particularly in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. We're losing market share. And what does that mean? It means particularly retailers, and I know many of my member companies are circumventing the ports. They're going to other ports, and those are jobs that go with it, and they typically don't come back. So that's certainly something we're working hard to see if we can find a resolution to that issue. And then we can talk about retail theft, which Larry will laugh. I started this job. I knew about ORC. I did a favor for a member company and who asked me to take a couple of media calls. And next thing I knew, I, was putting on my cape and becoming a crime fighter. And I never expected I would do that as the president of the Retailers Association. But retail theft and organized retail crime is a huge issue. And unfortunately, we're seeing it get worse, not better. But there's a couple of high points that I think are important for people to understand. And number one is that California, I know this sounds crazy sometimes, but California has been a leader on ORC. Back in 2018, the California Retailers Association sponsored a bill to develop the organized retail crime task forces. And these task forces are run through the California Highway Patrol. And basically they are these collaborations between CHP, who's our state police, local law enforcement, and retailers who really work together to put together some of these really huge ORC cases that you might hear about in the news. That's been extremely successful. And it's a funny story. And I think Larry remembers the task forces were about to sunset, and this was during COVID. And I'm getting calls from all over the country. We needed legislation to extend the sunset. And literally we got a bill passed on the very last day. They literally walked the bill from one side of the Capitol to the other to get it to the governor's desk so we could keep the task forces intact, because they were so important to our efforts to battle ORC. After that, you might recall, we had a number of smash and grabs. I know we saw one, a number of them in Walnut Creek. We immediately were on the phone with the governor's office and his entire team and negotiated record funding for ORC in the budget, over $200 million for permanent task forces, 2 additional task forces, dedicated prosecutors, local law enforcement grants, really trying to give the tools that retailers and law enforcement and prosecutors need in order to combat and put these cases together. So that's all been really positive. But yet we still see stores like Nordstrom, closing, Whole Foods closing in San Francisco. I think they're going to see some other stores that'll be announcing that they're closing in stores. You have a Walgreens in Chicago who is looking at doing, I don't know if you saw it, but basically you order online on a kiosk and it comes from the back. There's only 2 aisles. They're locked. So when you talk about locking up product, that's truly locked up. If you go to the Target in San Francisco, a lot of the product, personal care items are being locked up. So it's still a major problem. And candidly, the problem with that is that we need to fix Prop 47. When we have laws on the books that allow folks to go into stores, steal under $950 multiple times, and there's zero consequence for the behavior, You can't aggregate, nor do we have petty theft with a prior. People are going to continue to do that behavior. And until we're willing to have a really tough conversation about how we fix it, doesn't mean we have to throw out the entire initiative, but they did. And I've talked with the people who wrote Prop 47, and they know they made a mistake. There was a mistake, a flaw in the drafting of the initiative, which happens anytime you legislate via ballot box. And these are the unintended consequences that we're facing. For 2 years, CRA's tried to get legislation through that would bring back aggregation or bring back petty theft with a prior. Some of you, if you're engaged with the League of California Cities, this last year we partnered with the League on AB 1708 to bring back petty theft with a prior, and we can't get it out of the Assembly Public Safety Committee. So I continue to have conversations with the governor's office, with the governor directly, with the legislature, to say we really need to make changes to Prop 47 if we're ever going to see any relief, particularly when it comes to even our dealing with our homelessness and our mental health crisis in California, because we know that these folks are utilizing particularly grocery stores where they go in, they steal what they need, they come out, they sell it on the street, they buy drugs, they go back in. It's a constant merry-go-round, and until we break that cycle, nothing's going to change. But there is one other bill I'd like to alert all of you to as tied to retail theft, and that is Senate Bill 553 by Senator Cortese. This is a workplace violence bill, and I'd really encourage all of you to take a look at it if you're a business owner, because it affects every single industry and every business in the state of California, with the exception of healthcare. Healthcare has a health violence, workplace violence ordinance through Cal OSHA that was passed a few years ago. Cal OSHA is currently working on workplace violence regulations for the rest of the business community. Senator Cortese's introduced a bill that goes further than what Cal OSHA was going to do. And I can't make this up, but part of it doesn't differentiate between loss prevention or a retail employee. So at this point, it basically eliminates loss prevention professionals in our stores. So instead of working towards trying to solve the problem, we're also now having to fight legislation. There's another bill we're dealing with that would take away the ability to law enforcement and to loss prevention professionals to put together these cases by subpoenaing records, cell phone records, Google searches, which help them put these cases together. That would be taken away. So while on one hand, we have all these conversations about what's happening in our communities, stores closing, leaving the state, we have a legislature that sometimes I feel like I'm working in two completely different worlds, because they don't understand that some of their bills, while they might sound great, the unintended consequences, just like what we're seeing with Prop 47, is going to be very challenging for not just retailers, but the business community as a whole. So I'm going to open that up. I don't have my glasses on. I saw someone has a question. Are there any questions or any other issues that you'd like me to touch on? Because there's a lot in retail.
Rachel, what's the number of that last bill you were just mentioning? I know you had AB 1708, SB 553.
I've got to look it up and I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
I know what it is. I just can't remember it off the top of my head.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, so Rachel, maybe you can send us a list of these top bills that you guys are looking at and paying attention to, and then Nick, we can get it out to the rest of the group.
Yeah,
so everyone can see what those bills are. You mentioned a bill by Senator Cortese. He's going to become our state senator with the new lines. So we'll want to pay attention to a lot of those kinds of things. Alex, you have your hand raised. You have a question for Rachel?
Yes, I do. And you sort of addressed several parts of it, but I guess my overall question is why now? And I know it's complicated. You mentioned 47 and you mentioned, and I'm guessing that a combination of COVID and people buying more online and everything. But I also read that a lot of these thefts are done by organized people on a large scale that would close down a Tiffany's or a Nordstrom or something. But why now?
So yes, there's a difference between organized retail crime and retail theft. Organized retail crime is organized crime. They are typically well-funded. They basically are gangs that used to use drugs in order to fund their activities. Now it's easier to do retail theft. They recruit homeless people to steal from them. They'll recruit people. They'll say, here's $100, go in and here's the list that we need to steal. So that's been going on. And that's really what the organized retail crime task forces are focused on. What we're seeing though is more and more people coming into the stores, and I've seen the videos and they're heartbreaking where they'll roll out with a cart full of food or a cart full of TV and a computer. People are more brazen now going into stores and just stealing because they know they're going to get away with it. They know that the law enforcement is not going to come and do anything. In fact, I'm dealing with a member company who was basically told if they continue to call law enforcement about retail theft, they were going to cite the retailer as a public nuisance. So there's a lot of finger pointing going on. And it's just, I don't know why it's suddenly, I don't know if it's just because it's gotten a lot more media attention. The organized crime piece, though, I would say we're making actually more progress there because more actors are getting engaged. So FBI, Homeland Security, you get into money laundering, you get into, Secret Service because there's others. So there's a lot more attention being placed on the organized crime piece. Plus, a lot of states are starting and following suit of what California is doing and establishing their own organized retail crime task forces. So the more that happens in other states, because they don't just stop in California. A lot of times, as an example, in San Francisco, they'll go do a smash and grab, maybe for use the example of a Tiffany's. The minute that items are stolen, they're going to be on a plane or in a truck or whatever, getting out of the state of California, and they're going to be sold somewhere else. But the bigger problem really is that what we're seeing in our stores, because we're seeing people coming in, they will yell at our employees, they will yell at other customers. And unfortunately, the other thing we're seeing is people taking the law into their own hands because they're so frustrated in watching people break the law that now they're trying to stop retail theft. And we don't want that, because unfortunately we've had some folks lose their life when they're trying to get in the middle of a crime being committed. So it's a really challenging world right now. And I, Larry mentioned, I've been doing this now for almost over 2 years. I think it's worse now on the retail theft side than on the organized retail crime side. And I was just talking to some of my folks in loss prevention. I was at a conference with them. I just got back last night, and I said to them, I'm at a loss. I don't say that very often. I don't know what to do next. I feel like we've tried to do everything we can, and I'm just banging my head against a brick wall right now where everyone knows it's a problem. Everyone can see it. People are seeing it in their communities. I've got city council members in Southern California who want to fine retailers for not calling law enforcement. And I have to sit down and explain to them what's going on. This is a collaborative effort, and it's very, very frustrating because I can't get the attention, particularly of our elected leaders in Sacramento, to at least sit down and have a conversation of how we can find solutions to this problem. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, I realize that I was asking, it's a puzzle, and there's so many pieces to that puzzle, and you're expressing your puzzlement, and I get it. Thank you.
Hey, and Alex, I would tell one quick story on the why now question. When I ran government relations for Safeway Albertsons, we had a meeting with local chiefs of police, the governor and his staff on this issue. And a former chief of San Jose told the governor that they are finding and arresting people doing organized retail theft that they used to arrest for running drugs and guns. And they realized, the bad guys realized, that the return on the investment is there, and it is far safer to steal from Safeway than it is to run drugs and guns on the street. And so you see these really bad actors and bad criminals realize that their return is just as great, and it's much safer for them. And so those kinds of people are getting into the retail theft that affects all of our businesses, and quite frankly, us as consumers as well.
Probably part of it because of, is there a repeal of Prop 47 in the works, Rachel?
So I've heard we're not doing one as the Retailers Association. I've heard rumors that there is a possible initiative that is dealing with homelessness that brings in the fix to Prop 47 for retail theft. My sense is that I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years there's a repeal of 47. And here's the thing, there are things of Prop 47 that, you know, we needed to make some changes to the criminal justice system. I'm not arguing that. I mean, that's the argument I've tried to make to the people who wrote Prop 47. I said, look, we're not trying to blow up the whole thing. We just need to fix to the retail theft piece, because I think that's going to solve a lot of problems. I don't think you're ever going to solve homelessness in California. You're never going to solve the mental health issue until you deal with this theft piece of Prop 47. Because when these folks have a opportunity to go and start, I have a member company where the same people go in every day and steal, sell the product on the street, buy drugs, come back the next day, do it again. They've called law enforcement, but it's under $950 and it's cite and release. And do you think these folks are going to actually show up? They're not going to do that. And district attorney, and there's a lot of, like I said, and Larry's been on some of those, it's just finger pointing and no one wants to take responsibility. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see it coming down the pipeline, and there's definitely rumors about that happening. Probably not 24, I would say probably closer to like 26.
So not to steal Larry's thunder, but when I was chair of this committee, I would always ask our guests, what can our little organization do to help you solve the bigger problem?
I think right now the biggest threat, and I failed to mention one other because I always hate being the bearer of bad news for California businesses, but we also have another bill, SCA 7. It's a Senate constitutional amendment that is being pushed by the Labor Federation. And basically what this initiative or this amendment would do, it enshrines everyone's right in California to organize. Okay, that's no problem, get it, that's fine, we don't have a problem with it, but it goes a step further, meaning you cannot do anything to put the economic well-being of any California in jeopardy, which we did a constitutional legal analysis. We're working with the California Chamber of Commerce, and it basically says you can't fire anyone in the state of California, right? Because it's going to impact their economic well-being. In addition, it guarantees every Californian a safe work environment, but it doesn't tell you what that is. I would say right now, to your point, where I need help is on SB 553, on SCA 7, on some of these bills that are coming through the legislature, in hopes that we can stop them or get them significantly amended. Because if we could deal with that, then we can deal with some of these bigger issues later. But it's an attack from all sides. And I just don't think they understand. I think the challenge in the legislature is you have so many new members, you have so many new staff people. A lot of them aren't even reading the bills. People are coming in, oh, will you sponsor this bill? And a lot of it's coming from labor, and they have their agenda, and they're not understanding what's going to happen if these pieces of legislation pass. And so helping us kill some of these pieces of legislation would go a long way. And I'll send you the list with all the supporting documents.
Great, thank you. John McKay, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the report. As a former council member, this is one of the discussions I would have with the police chief. So the problem is here. It's just not somewhere else, but it's right here in our community. You go to Target and Walmart and those places, and they're being hit constantly. And it's the level of frustration is palpable. You know, it's silly. So anyway, Alex asked the question I was going to ask, and I will say that, you know, so many of us here have a good relationship with our legislators that, you know, amongst many other things we want to discuss, I think this is a good one to bring up because it is really impacting the quality of life when we start to lose our retailers, especially in a community like ours, because we're somewhat removed from the rest of, you know, the metropolitan area. So anyway, I do hope there is some kind of action. I'll take this to the Downtown Association, ask them to do something, but it would be nice to know, you know, who we target, what the name of the bills are, and what you feel we should be doing. Thank you.
Well, I would say 1708 is a 2-year bill. So, and Assemblymember Martucci is the author, who is very committed. The problem is Assembly Public Safety Committee. I mean, it can't get out of Public Safety Committee. I know Assemblymember Reggie Jones Sawyer. I had, and now he has changed his tune. I had dinner with him before he killed our bill in committee, and he said, Rachel, it's not me. I support what you're trying to do. It's the other members of the committee. And I said, respectfully, you're the chair of the committee. You can let the bill out of your committee. Here's what I think needs to happen. We need to get some of the, and it's not just retail theft. He wouldn't let fentanyl bills out, right? I mean, he doesn't let anything out. He does not believe we need to hold people accountable for their behavior. We need pressure put on. I would say one way to help is we're going to have a new speaker starting on July 1st. Assembly member Robert Revis will be the new speaker, is to reach out to him and just say, hey, we are a chamber and we're going to ask our other collaborators in the business community to do this. We need to at least have a good hearing and let some of these bills get to the floor. Because I think if we get the bill out of Public Safety Committee, we can get it all the way through, at least to the Senate. Then I got to deal with Senate Public Safety Committee. But we just have to keep raising the awareness that we need to make changes in California. So I think that's what would be most helpful is any legislators you talk to, you need to say. Now, the challenge is I've talked to Democrat legislators who are just as frustrated as I am that these bills aren't getting out of committee, out of public safety. And we really need to have the new speaker make some major changes to that. That's the roadblock, because to the point about overturning Prop 47, I mean, you're looking at $10 million to collect signatures. That's a challenge. You're looking at, that's why to me, going through the legislative process, because even if our bill got through and was signed by the governor, it would have to go to the ballot because it's amending Prop 47, which was approved by the voters. So I believe there's much more opportunity for open dialogue through the legislative process than trying to do it via signature gathering.
The chair of the Public Safety Committee in the Assembly is Reggie Jones Sawyer.
Yes.
Rachel, before I get to Nick's question, I'm going to try to shift the conversation a little bit from the very important topic of retail theft, but to workforce and workforce issues. Is the California Retailers Association working in partnership on workforce types of issues that perhaps some of our retailers or even as a chamber we could get engaged in?
So we are. I would say one that I'm really excited about is we're part of the National Retail Federation, and they have a program called RISE. And what it is, it's job training, and it's specific. It's more customer service. So there's different modules that you can come in and you do training on. We're bringing in the first module, which is really customer service. And it really is geared towards getting people into the retail industry, but it can be across industries, restaurant, whatever. We're going to start doing that around the state. I received some grant money through our foundation to do that. So I think that's really important. We're always trying to do things around workforce development because we have a worker shortage. Part of the challenge is that we don't have enough employees. And so we also represent community pharmacies. So we're going to be launching a campaign around getting more pharmacists, more farm techs. We're also facing a healthcare crisis in California. Hospitals are closing, particularly in the Central Valley. Pharmacies play a role in delivery of healthcare, particularly through immunizations and making sure people get some of the testing that they need. So we're working on that as well. But, it's hard right now because those are the issues I like to focus on. But you're always on defense, and we're continue to be on defense. I think that there's some money available from the state. We're going to try to see if we can get some funding to do continued workforce development, to talk about why the retail industry is a great industry to be a part of. And we're always looking for partners. So if you ever wanted to partner with us on maybe a RISE program, let me know. It's great for young people. It starts at about 15. And then it really our funders who funded that program, which are retailers, if you go through the program, and these are national brands, they guarantee at least an interview. So you actually, and my guess is, you're going to get a job because everyone needs people to come in and work. So it's a great opportunity to get people into the retail industry.
That's great, Nick.
Yeah. First and foremost, Rachel, it's so nice to meet you. My name is Nick Asian. I'm the CEO and president of the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. And you really hit on several key points, which is why we're really honored to have you here today. One, the chamber pledges to work more closely with you and your group. So, aside from this meeting, I'm going to want to connect to understand how we can really forge a stronger relationship as it relates to retail, and more importantly, than how we disseminate that information down to our members. There's a couple of significant things that you spoke about. One obviously is on the legislative advocacy efforts. And you're absolutely right. So I think what I'd like to do maybe is, aside from this meeting, is to set some time up with you and a few of our strong colleagues on the phone, the city of Morgan Hill, as well as in the Downtown Association, to really look at more of a targeted approach as it relates to legislative actions that we can fully understand. I'm sure, like many on this phone, I'm bombarded, right, with position statements coming from all sides. But what I don't have is strong clarity, really, to understand how we should be taking positions, and then from that perspective, how to disseminate that down to a coalition within our area. So we certainly could use your help and your facilitation to do that. So I'd like to set up some time, Rachel, with you to really talk about that. The other area that Larry brought up is very near and dear to our hearts. That we just launched last week, that the Chamber of Commerce is going to spend 23 and 24 as a major initiative for workforce development, which will really then cross several components, from your discussion on recruitment and retention to supply chain issues to discovery to education and training. So we definitely want to talk more deeply about your RISE program. So I think we'll need to set up a separate phone call on that. So I think what we have today is an opportunity. We have opened the door, right, for a like-minded partner that can really help us. I want to come from two perspectives, one from the legislative advocacy effort, as well as, and I want to go ground zero as it relates to workforce development and all those activities that really allow especially our smaller retail stores. We have a tremendous amount of strength here in Morgan Hill with small independent owners that own retail. And we want to be able to help them move their meter from just survival through the last couple of years of the pandemic to stabilization to renewal. But we need help and we need assistance to provide those key best practices so that can be assimilated down into our DNA and who we are as far as from a retail perspective. So I first wanted to say thank you. It was great to meet you. I apologize for not connecting earlier on this. I want to thank Larry for the connection. We'll set some time up after this session to be able to really have some deeper dives, but my hope is to be able to have those dives at a very targeted area so we can see traction and momentum. Then we can see how we can accelerate and amplify our growth long term. So we'll be reaching out from our office. I'll reach out with the help of John McKay for the Downtown Association and that group, Krista from Visit Morgan Hill at that area, as well as then we're working very closely, obviously, with the city of Morgan Hill. And what we're looking at is an umbrella opportunity through the Chamber of Commerce to be that sole source of connections, conveners, and more importantly, tangible efforts to be able to move that meter in retail. So thank you so much for.
Great. Thank you. No, absolutely. Yeah, please reach out. Happy to collaborate wherever we can.
Thanks, Ned. Brittany Sherman is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Morgan Hill. Brittany, you've got a question for us?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. That was great information, Rachel. I just had a quick question for you, and I'm sure you get the question many, many times as it relates to the fictitious drive-by lawsuits that are circling around and have been circling for some time. Is is it PAGA or PAGA reform that you had spoken about earlier? Does that address those fictitious lawsuits, or is there anything coming through the legislation that's going to address those?
Well, there's no legislation because that's really difficult to get. So it depends. I mean, I would argue that on the PAGA reform, these are kind of those shakedown lawsuits where they're wage and hour lawsuits. For those of you who don't, and I can send you a video that we put together that explains it pretty well. But basically, if I'm a wronged employee and I go to an attorney and I'm like, hey, look, I think I was wrongfully terminated, they're going to say, okay, well, we don't think we have a case, but let me see your paycheck. And then they're going to look at my paycheck. Oh, well, there's an error on the paycheck. Well, then that opens it up to discovery, which then can include, and then it becomes these class action lawsuits. So these are where you're seeing multi-million-dollar settlements. I will say that I'm on the executive committee for that campaign. And as part of that, we hired David Lanier, who was Governor Brown's former labor secretary. And he's been going through, so I now have documents from every industry that tell me what their PAGA settlements are. And Larry will laugh. Retailers hate it when I know what their PAGA settlements are. They're like, what do you mean you know what this is? And I'm like, it's public record. And when you start seeing these settlements, they're multi-million dollars. $15 million, 20 million, but then they hit small businesses. And I know there was a cement owner in Southern California who all he did was move down a couple of storefronts. He thought, oh, I'm just going to keep using my same check. He crossed out the suite number, put in the new suite number. He got hit with a 6-figure PAGA settlement. He closed up shop and he left the state. So, you know, we are trying to, and I can forward to Larry. We've got a lot of information around PAGA. We're working towards a legislative deal. I think we'll be able to get a deal. We have until June 30th of 2024 to do that. But the most important thing to remember is that for the first time, the business community collectively is being proactive, not reactive. We qualified the initiative, which means we are the ones that are in the power seat on negotiations. So I'm very excited about the PAGA reform. I think we really have a good shot at getting some relief there. And I think it's a great role for local chambers, because I will guarantee a lot of your members have probably been hit with PAGA settlements. And we need those stories. We need to know who those are, because let's just be frank, when we go to negotiate in the legislature, they could care less about big box retailers, but they really care about the small businesses. And when we start to show that the impact it's having on our small businesses, who in my opinion are really the fabric of all of our communities, then they start to pay attention. So I will certainly send that information over. And if you have additional questions, let me know.
What about the
I have a whole PAGA presentation I could come point to.
What about the other side of that coin, as we're looking at what's disproportionately hit with small businesses than large businesses, the ADA lawsuits and those drive-bys? I know that's been, for us, South County, a huge issue. Statewide, it's been a huge issue. And it just seems like nobody's really kind of been able to get enough people together, like what's being happened now for this reform. Could that possibly pave the way?
You know, it could. And here's what I would say on the ADA, on those kinds of lawsuits. There was a lot of attention given to that a couple of years ago in the media. I think you have to get back into the media on those. That narrative has been lost. I think it was Assemblymember Beth Gaines, when she was in office, she really took that on as her issue and tried to get relief. I think when you meet with some of your elected officials in the state legislatures to rise that back up to the top of the list, because I haven't really, in Sacramento, you don't hear about those anymore. And I think that you need to, you know, I use the media a lot to draw attention to issues, and that's how I seem to get the attention of elected officials. So I'd absolutely recommend saying this is still a problem. I think because people don't hear about it as much, they don't think it's a problem. So I would definitely raise that. And I think you could. I mean, I think it's something we always are about is how do we get, you know, this type of reform. But I think that's something that, you know, through the local chambers, through maybe NFIB, some of those groups, to kind of start beating the drum again on that narrative, so that especially these new legislators understand what's going on.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Rick?
Yeah, Rachel, one thing. So I'm the ex-CFO or retired CFO from Paramount Corporation here in town. It was interesting, during the COVID crisis, we employed 500 people and we kept working. We adjusted our lunch periods to get a limited number of people into our lunchroom to be safe. Yet we ran into a PAGA lawsuit because of that. And just the length of time people didn't take a break, basically. So we certainly ran afoul and ended up settling. And there's some firms down in Southern California that's what they specialize in. You know, they just love to sue people for that issue.
Mr. PAGA.
Yeah,
we know him well. Yes, and you know, and I think that's what the fear is too, is that I don't have it in front of me, but we're going to see increased PAGA litigation going forward because of COVID. You know, a lot of businesses, you know, especially if you're deemed essential, we didn't know what was, I mean, these regulations were changing by the hour. I mean, I'm calling members constantly trying to get clarification on what to do. When do you test? When do you do this? You know, all of that. And I do think there's going to be more and more suits coming out, because people are going to look at those paychecks and realize that, you know, when businesses were trying to do the right thing, now they're going to be penalized by it, because these attorneys are just taking advantage and getting 1/3 of these settlements, right? And so what we're trying to do in the initiative, in a nutshell, is that 100% of the settlement goes to the wronged employee, but the wronged employee cannot include all of these other employees in these class action lawsuits. And it goes directly to the labor commissioner. So the labor commissioner can make the decision. And I think that's going to help alleviate what some of these attorneys are doing and trying to take it. I think they're trying to take advantage of employees as well, because a lot of people don't understand what PAGA is.
All right, other questions for Rachel? Seeing none, Rachel, I really want to thank you again for your time, your knowledge, your expertise. Retailers are essential to communities, not just for tax base, but retailers are the heart and soul of communities. They build downtowns. Small business is really what keeps communities alive. And so having great representation at the state level and a friend that can come and talk to us about issues is so valuable to us as a Chamber of Commerce here in Morgan Hill. So I want to thank you again. We've heard significant issues that we're going to want to follow up on, I think, as a chamber on PAGA reform. An issue, the original Private Attorney General's Act was a really good idea with, again, unintended consequences that no one thought through, and now we need to fix it. Workforce, and Nick expressed how important workforce issues are for us as a community and as a chamber, and we'll want to work with you closely on those, Rachel. Obviously, retail theft and theft is a big issue on everyone's mind. And then just your knowledge of general business issues, politics in the legislature. So we'll follow up on all of those kinds of things in ways that our chamber and our members can be helping what's going on to improve the climate here in California. Rachel, thanks again so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now. Okay. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Rachel is a wealth of information, and I know she and her organization are willing to come back and talk with us at any time that we need them to. She's right in the middle of every conversation going on statewide that affects our economy, affects employers and businesses. And so is just really a great person to talk to and a great wealth of information for us. So I hope we all enjoyed that. Let's take a few minutes and go around the room on our typical reports that we hear from. Alex already gave us an Open Space Authority report. Krista, I'm going to turn to you. Can you talk to us a little bit about Visit Morgan Hill?
Sure. Yeah, I hope everyone's having a great morning. Visit Morgan Hill is approaching the end of its fiscal year, so we go July through June. So we are doing a lot of year-end reporting as well as planning for fiscal year 23-24. Within that term, our Morgan Hill Tourism Business Improvement District, the TBID, the term is coming to an end in February. So a big part of our focus will be going through the renewal process to establish the next TBID. So that is really big in focus for the coming months. For TBID for this fiscal year of what we collected, we can kind of look at that as a barometer for how the hotels are performing. And we're projecting that by the end of June, that this fiscal year will be 23% more than the prior year. So we are seeing movement in the right direction in terms of revenue at the hotels. And other than that, I just wanted to share some good news. Morgan Hill was featured in Allegiant Airlines in-flight magazine. So we will be in the seat backs of about, I want to say it's 100,000 circulation for 3 months in the aircraft on West Coast routes. So I'll drop a link to the article if you haven't seen it. But this was a result of working with our PR company to bring a journalist to Morgan Hill and have her experience the wine, dining, activities. And so she squeezed a lot of really good stuff into one page. So we'll have more of those coming. We spent the last few months hosting a lot of journalists and influencers. So we'll see the fruits of those coming in the next few months.
That's awesome. Thanks, Krista.
Yeah.
Good work. And,
Thank you.
And I know you're working with Nick, and you guys will identify what the right time is to come and talk to us specifically about renewing that T-bid, so that the chamber can be helpful in that process, and how great that is for us. Nick, and then John. Nick, you had a question for Krista or a comment?
No, just more. I just want to recognize Krista's campaign for that Allegiance publication. I know that was it was not only a strong campaign, but it was a lot of work underneath the waterline to pull all that together. I know it represented the beauty of Morgan Hill in so many different verticals of who we are and what we do. So I just wanted to say congratulations on that. I'm just going to have to find an Allegiance flight somewhere just to grab the magazine. Thank you for what you do, and to Larry's point, absolutely, we will be a strong supporter and endorser for that upcoming renewal for the T-bid. Krista, great job.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, it's really a lot of coordination, and these, partners that are featured are often hosting the journalist. So whether it's a restaurant meal or a wine tasting, they're going above and beyond to make sure that they have a great experience to write about. So we appreciate our partners very much.
Awesome. John.
Yeah, thank you. Great report. I have to say, I was so thrilled. I turned on TV one day, and there was a Panthers football game, and there were the Morgan Hill ads, the videos. And I got to tell you, first of all, I didn't know I was watching the Panther game, just kind of stumbled upon it. But then I see this wonderful advertisement from Morgan Hill. And I just got to say, that's been a wonderful progress that you've made. Another thing is I got to spend an entire day at Denver Airport. If you ever fly in there, watch out, thunderstorms will shut it down. And I think Allegiant is actually the regional airline for United. Is that correct? Because Allegiant is a big deal. It's not just a little puddle jumper that nobody ever sees. It goes between, Fargo, North Dakota and Minot. It's actually a pretty substantial airline from what I saw, and everybody running from Lightning. That was pretty cool. The next thing is you've got the Panthers are going to have a Morgan Hill Monday night. And when is that, so that we know
yes.
anything special being set up by Visit, Morgan Hill, and the other organizations?
Yeah, so the game is on July 10th. So that's a Monday. And I'll have to double check the time. I'm not sure if it's 6 or 7 kickoff. But basically, there's going to be some kind of a halftime performance organized, and I think it'll be sports related. But Visit Morgan Hill actually has a batch of tickets that we would like to open up to the community for free on a first come, first serve basis. So we are looking to do a rollout for that and try to get, a really substantial Morgan Hill section. Another thing that's being done is there's going to be some kind of giveaway dropped from the rafters. So about 80 to 100 items people will coordinate and drop, and whoever catches the prize gets to keep it. So we're actually brainstorming items and figuring out logistics for that. But yeah, I think we want to do a campaign getting those tickets out, and we're just kind of figuring out the rollout and how to do that in a fair and equitable way.
Okay,
and
great.
I'm glad you saw the commercials.
It was wonderful. I got to tell you, I was not expecting it, so it was a very pleasant surprise. Do they have any more of the little Panthers with Morgan Hill logo on it?
Yeah.
Good. How do we get those? I would love to put
I
those
have a
on
whole
the
bag
antenna.
of them if you want some.
There they
Anyone
are.
who wants a panther, they're very cute.
See you soon. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. Great report. Joe, what's going on with the Planning Commission?
Well, at the last meeting, we recommended approval of the Crosswinds project up next to the hospital. And that because there's overriding considerations because of prime farmland and vehicle miles traveled has to go to the city council. And as we were educated by one of the local developers, that vehicle miles traveled requires, I believe, a supermajority of the city council to vote on it. And hopefully we're working on our own vehicle miles traveled issue so that hopefully we can have our own plan and not be set with the county VTA model. The next meeting has actually been canceled. So the 13th meeting won't happen. And I have no idea what is on or potentially on the agenda for the 27th of June. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that. Nick, did you have something to add on that? You're on mute, Nick.
Joe, just a quick question. Do we know when the Crosswinds project will go to the council? Has it been slated as an agenda item in July, or do we know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I can reach out and try and find out for you.
That'd be great.
If they have a projected.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
All right. Brittany, what can you tell us what's going on at City Hall?
All right. Hello, everyone. So quick update from us. Sidewalk Saturdays is still going in full swing. So we're down on 3rd Street with about anywhere from 20 to 25 vendors, which rotate out every week. So that is going to run until June 24th. We're going to take a break through the summer, and then we are going to open that on August 26th, which is our first downtown. Oh God, I always forget what it's called. 4th Saturday Downtown Street Series events. So that'll open up our fall season, and then we'll run and finish the fall season with Small Business Saturday. Switching over to the PBID, that will go live and active starting July 1st. The board did decide to add on 2 new board directors, but I'm not going to share those names with you right now. So you'll have to tune into our meeting on July 1st in order to hear who else has been added onto the board. In addition to that, we did go through kind of an extensive shopping list and price points and timelines as far as what that group might want to do. If you'll remember, we have $106,000 left over from the prior PBID funding. That's now will be routed into the new PBID. However, the uses for that are still tied to the uses from the prior PBID. A little bit confusing, but for the most part, everybody's looking at safety, security, cleanliness, lighting, beautification. They all kind of fall in the same bucket they did at the previous PBID. So I think we have a pretty good shopping list for those those monies and the items moving forward. So if you want to tune in on July 1st, you can get up to date and start moving with us as we go active. As far as the 4th Saturday Downtown Street Series events, we have those all organized and scheduled out. We are grouping with the Chamber of Commerce for the September activation, where they're going to host the car show, and then grouping with the Downtown Association for the October event, where we're doing the safe trick or treat and then thinking through some programming along with that as well. You'll see those marketing pieces come out next Friday, and after that, it will be a very fast, furious, and rigorous marketing and communications campaign. We plan to go door to door to all of the businesses ahead of time. We'll be hosting some online webinars, just so we want to make sure that everybody understands, whether you're a downtown business owner, a citywide business owner, or a resident, what the events entail, that they're meant for free family fun programming, and that the downtown will be closed for a specific amount of time. So that all will again begin next Friday. And maybe last but not least, but on next Friday, June 16th, we're also going to be hosting the SVIDA, which is the Silicon Valley Economic Development Alliance. So a group of all of the economic development directors in the Bay Area or so, they're going to be coming down for our annual South County Day. So Chris is going to be providing an update from Visit Morgan Hill. We're going to have an update from the Wineries Association. We're going to host at Terra Amigo Farms and have Lion Ranch out there as well. And we're going to have some representatives from the county and from Visit Gilroy as well. So just kind of giving a holistic overview of what's happening in South County and what people are working on here. That'll be next Friday, June 16th. And then last but not least, just maybe of interest to this group, just to know, we have several medical providers in the area. So existing medical providers that are really independent or using a space in Morgan Hill as a secondary site. So maybe their prime location is in Los Gatos, but they see a lot of South County clients. So they have a second one in Morgan Hill that maybe they see clients twice a week. a lot of those are expanding so much with the South County clients that they're looking to actually open a full-time office here. So we're seeing a lot of those small pockets starting to grow. But as you know, we don't have the available space for medical in what they're looking for in the square footage. So we're kind of working through that and being creative really in how we might accommodate them in the future. And I believe that's my report. Thanks, Larry.
Wow, so many great things coming out of the economic development team at City Hall. Thanks, Brittany. That's really exciting. Nick's still on mute.
I'm sorry. There you go. You think I would learn just to turn my mute off here, but I don't know. I think old age is creeping in, Larry, and it's slipping fast. What can I say? Brittany, with all the things that you talked about, which you're looking forward to every one of those events, you mentioned Small Business Saturday. I'd like maybe have a follow-up conversation with you. I've had some early conversations on potentially some chamber opportunities with that as well. So if you'd like to partner on that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what the city's doing and maybe how we can kind of help participate with that as well.
Always happy to partner. Always.
Very cool. All right. Hey, Mario, can you give us a little bit of an update on the Hispanic Working Group?
Sure, Larry. Yeah, I have a few items to report. First, on May 25th, we celebrated a graduation of 23 students from the 8-week small business training classes hosted by the Hispanic Chamber of Silicon Valley in partnership with the Rotary Club of Morgan Hill. Of the graduates, about half of them have existing businesses. The others are either in the process of starting a business or considering it. Either way, we will continue to engage and support them moving forward. The other thing is we are also currently working with Prosperity Labs, and they're a nonprofit that supports and empowers underserved business communities. And we're working with them to host a 4-week course this July on digital marketing and new technologies. The classes will be held at in Morgan Hill at the Britton Middle School, and we're currently in the process of doing some outreach to some of the local businesses and to encourage them to participate. So more to come in the future. So that's pretty much it. So, and it's good to see Fidel from Work to Future. A group of us met with him on a possible partnership with him, and it was very productive meeting. So, yeah.
Right. Thanks, Mario. A lot of great stuff going on there. And yes, Fidel, thanks for joining us this morning. Anything from Work to Future that you'd like to add for the group?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to invite me to this meeting this morning. We're working on a couple of items currently. We have a project that's focused on HVAC trainees, interns. We've, I believe, shared some information with some of your folks a while back, maybe last week. We sent a flyer promoting the project. So if there's a way that your businesses who are HVAC oriented can get the information, we'll be able to provide them an intern if they so desire for about 200 hours, and we'll be able to pay the 200 hours of the intern work at that particular company. So please give us a call or an email if you need some info. We'll continue to provide that to you.
Thank you for that. We appreciate that. Nick?
Sorry, I told you, old age is creeping in. In last week's breakfast meeting, the chamber announced a fairly significant workforce development project initiative, over the next really couple of years. So Fidel, it's great to see you on the call this morning. We certainly will have disseminated that flyer. But more importantly, I think for the group, we're really working through a fairly significant roadmap with like-minded partners such as Work to Future, Prosperity Labs, and others coming down the road. So as we start to pull that together, we'll actually have, hopefully, Larry, a formal and written presentation to economic development to kind of lay out the roadmap, and more importantly, how our businesses as well as our job seekers can engage activities in the very near future. So certainly Work to Future will be a strong partner with us in several key programs. In fact, a meeting with Fidel and his team will be setting up a follow-up call sometime next week, and we'll engage 3 of their large initiatives just to help serve as kind of a catalyst opportunity for us, along with a few other partners. So the Chamber is absolutely looking forward to really seeing ourselves at that central voice for workforce development, and partners such as Work to Future and Prosperity Labs will be key partners for us moving forward. So more to come, Larry, and as soon as we have a lot of the brick and mortar laid out, we'll go ahead and have more of a formal presentation to the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, that'll be really great to hear more about that and how we can all be more engaged in workforce issues. As we heard from Rachel, there's some statewide initiatives on that we can get in at the early phase on working with the retailers and others on some of those issues. So really great opportunities to help our workforce here in the South County area. I think we're going to have an opportunity to give you back a little bit of your time this morning as we're going to wrap up here a little bit early. But I wanted to give Nick, Lori, and Steve McFarland an opportunity to talk about other things going on with the Chamber and any announcements from the Chamber. Or Steve, you have your hand up, and maybe there's some BBB items that you want to talk about as well. I'll go to Steve McFarland first.
Great, thanks. Not too much BBB. I gave a presentation at the breakfast meeting last week on Scam Tracker. If you would like to take a look at some devious activity in your particular area, no matter where you are, no matter where your family is, you could go to Scam Tracker, bbb.org/Scam Tracker for free and track scams and frauds in your area. Larry, what I did want to ask Rachel this morning, actually, I did want to ask her, but on Monday we saw the news that Lululemon fired 2 employees for calling the cops for stealing stuff out of their store. And I was going to ask her, what do you recommend that we do? I don't know. It's kind of a redundant question. It's just troublesome. And I'm sure that we are going to be asked about businesses, what do you want us to do? What can we do? What policies do we set? And thankfully, we are not San Francisco, and it's not as bad here in Morgan Hill, but it's just something to be concerned about. The other thing I did want to mention, though, is unrelated to all of it. It has to do with the news from Allstate and State Farm. Both companies are packing up, and they're going to leave in the business and home insurance markets for California, starting off with the home insurance market. And I think that's not something like really urgent for us, but it is going to tighten up the insurance market and what we do in our area. And I think our businesses should be aware, and maybe that the Chamber and our other groups could maybe research this, do some analysis on what we can tell our businesses on what they can do. I'm sure it's going to be a nice opportunity for some of the boutique firms and some other insurance companies, but we should have some discussion about what we can tell our businesses. I think it might be a good opportunity for us to be able to give a message about what's coming up in the insurance market, because it is going to affect not only everybody's homeowners rates, but also their business rates as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really important point. You're right. John?
Yeah, that last bit of news is quite alarming, because I was helping one of our assembly members with understanding what some of the rates were for your fire insurance. And because of where we live, some people had gone from a nominal, $2,000-3,000 a year to $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 a year. And so this is very important. We really need to understand what's going on here. I know I personally do, because I live in an affected area and I have State Farm. So if there's anything more we can learn about that, or maybe it's just futile because they're leaving no matter what, but I think that'd be a great service to the community. Thank you.
It would be. Thank you, John. Nick, Lori, any announcements from Chamber?
Well, we have our first Friday Night Music Series concert coming up June 16th. So that's next week. I just think we have a whole bunch of new businesses, chamber members that are wanting to come out and set up a booth out there and be part of the experience and, sell their wares and promote their businesses. So we're really excited about that. So those final preparations are underway. I know Brooke's at the CCC today, dragging out banners and getting the new banners set up, ready to go. So we'll be joining her later on today to get that all done. And we're just really excited, looking forward to that. The other little bit of news is with the fourth Saturday closures with the city on the September 26th, Brittany, right? The September 26th closure, we will be having our car show. So it'll be much like it was every year, other than the distance. Then we'll run it on the west side of Morgan Hill, the entire side of the street from Main up to 4th Street. So we'll have that side of the street car show. The other side is going to be the the street installation over there with the vendors that Brittany's bringing in. So we're excited about that. That's going to look very much the same. It's going to be $40 a car. You'll get your continental breakfast. So if you want to bring your car out and just hang out with us, it'll be a fun day. So that's all I have.
Cool. Thanks, Lori. Nick, anything else from the chamber?
No, I don't think, I think we talked more as much as we can about workforce development, so more to come on that. Yes, I'm excited for Friday Night Music Series. I think the car show is September 23rd. I think it's Saturday, September 23rd. And then in October, we're already preparing for our annual golf tournament as a fundraiser. So a lot in play, a lot in motion, and a lot in preparation, as they say, Larry. Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Marby Lee.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add on to the whole State Farm issue. It was in our Gilroy Brokers Tour meeting of a week or two ago. I can't remember now. There's a representative from local State Farm here, and I apologize, his name is escaping me at the moment, but was reporting on that the cost were one of the reasons that State Farm's got out, but also because they've gone back to the insurance commission trying to get the okay to raise rates. And I'm paraphrasing here, and he's probably a better person to ask for specific details, but they were getting turned down to be able to get the rates raised, which is part of the reason why they've kind of put the moratorium on issuing new policies. And according to him, and again, I'd go to him directly for more information, that he sees it as a temporary thing. I asked him temporary months, years, and there wasn't a real good answer, but he sounded kind of hopeful that in the future it may come back, but it's just a matter, a matter of, insurers being able to, get their costs back and raise the rates to what they need to do to be able to insure here in California. And again, I direct you to him. And, my approaching senior brain, I can't remember the name. I would let you know, but it's a State Farm broker here, I believe in Morgan Hill. So.
Okay. Thank you. All right. This has been a really great meeting this morning. I appreciate everyone joining us. Look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. Rick Kent, you get the last word to sign us off as chair of this committee.
I really don't have much of anything. I was going to make one question of Brittany. I know Matt Mayhood is hosting a community session on, I believe it's June 15th, about the administrative office change to zoning in Morgan Hill. It really impacts just large plots, in particular, the Trammell Crow plot at 101 and Cochrane, and allows auto dealerships to come in there. Is that open to the community?
Yes, that's open to the general public.
So one thing to understand, it's at the CCC. I certainly will be there. Other than that, Larry, I don't have anything else.
All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this meeting as well. We'll see you next time. Take care.